Hey, I'm Tins.
I'm Nakis.
That's right, that's Nakis, not RushJet 1. And this is NintenHeadZ, a retro-themed podcast focused on playing and rating all Nintendo games. At the beginning of every episode, we've been doing dad jokes. Let's go ahead and jump right into that.
Let's not.
No, let's not. Which Sega character loves Top Gear 3000?
Sonic.
Miles per hour. Okay. Dude, did you know they were gonna include a character from Kid Icarus in Top Gear? But he didn't make it in time. He had to make a pit stop.
I'm done with you.
He had to make a pit stop.
I got it. You're just ignorant, bro.
You get the joke?
Yeah.
And moving on from that, so, Nakis, I want to talk to you and the listeners just for a minute about the podcast, NintenHeadZ. I want to talk about kind of who we are. This is, I don't know, it's episode 5. I feel like it's, appropriate maybe to kind of clarify maybe some goals and just talk about our what we're doing here. Listeners, just for context, so it's really just Nakis and I. We're doing all the, we've logged all the games. We're taking the notes and we're doing the editing, which we have little to no experience with that. So we're really just treading unknown waters here, and just to put it in perspective of, we are just doing this as a hobby. My short-term goal. If you look into the success rates of podcasts, it's not always the best. With that being said, my small goal is to hit 50 episodes at the very least. Longer term goal would be to have at least 100 episodes or more. So that's just kind of where we stand right now.
I'm sitting.
That's where we sit right now. And, I just wanted to kind of clarify a few things. Furthermore, just to kind of expand on the delivery of the episodes, we would like to produce an episode every single week. That's the main goal. This is, in theory, a weekly podcast. That being said, if we need to give ourselves a break, life gets in the way. Literally, constantly, every day. It's we've got families and homes and, important things to take care of, and that always comes first. So, all that being said, we are kind of just taking this lightly, but also we want to produce quality episodes, quality sound, and, so we are putting as much energy into this as we can. I am going to invest in some better microphones for better sound quality. If you like what we're doing, stick with us. Hopefully we can scale this thing up little by little and just see where it goes and have fun while we're doing it.
Yeah.
That being said, Nakis, are you ready for the question of the week?
I don't know.
Last week I had an element-related question.
Right.
This week I have another element-related question. What is your favorite element of gaming? Now, I think we could find the common ground that, for the most part, you could say gameplay has got to be the most important, because you're playing a game for the gameplay, obviously. You could almost, as long as you have good gameplay and you're having a good time, you might be able to tolerate bad music or even turn it down, or you might be able to tolerate all the bad graphics, because who cares, you're having fun. So that being said, outside of the gameplay, what is your favorite gaming element?
I was going to suggest, what if you start out this week and give us your
answer?
answer?
You want me to? Okay. So yeah, I'll go first. My favorite element is definitely the music of gaming. Just because I'm a music guy in general. Like, I love music of all types. And, even if you have a bad game, you can kind of have something that tugs at your heartstrings in a way, or kind of moves you emotionally?
I don't really break down the individual elements of a game until, I've never thought about it. So shoot me if this is not an acceptable answer to your question, but I would have to say the overall experience in general. Like, not necessarily the graphics, the music, the gameplay, because I feel like any one of those elements could turn a very good game into a mediocre game very quickly if one of those doesn't match the story.
Okay.
You could have great gameplay and then a terrible story to match it, and then the game turns from a 10 to a 5. Yeah, I would say my favorite element is all of the elements combined. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you were looking for.
Well, that's a peculiar, I guess, answer. But I mean, I can see where you're coming from for sure.
Like, it's just hard.
I guess
for me
I'm just saying, if you had to like okay, outside of gameplay,
I mean, I would say story definitely has to be like the next most important thing for me.
like if you had to take away,
but then you have games that
everything
don't
else.
have stories tied to them. So
right,
but great games.
But that's still okay. It doesn't. Not every single game is going to have your favorite element, so to speak.
Right.
But that still doesn't negate your favorite element, if that makes sense. Like, if your favorite element is music or a story, there's games out there literally without music. It's not that many of them, but I'm still gonna say that music is my favorite element. Just because there's a few games.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that. If the gameplay's bad, I can be like, I can take this one thing away, say, okay, at least I had really awesome music. Like, I really appreciate that the most. Or is graphics more important to you in a game? Or is that just you don't really care? Or
I don't really care about graphics. Music is... It's important for me, but it's not like my most important. Definitely, I would say, because I do a lot of open world shooters or RPGs. I would say the overall story. And honestly, one that's very, very, very important to me is don't give me a really good badass plot line, good gameplay, and then make it a 6-hour length game.
So you hate when it's too short of a game?
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Give me some
I think,
lengthy gameplay.
For sure. I think with JRPGs especially, or just RPGs in general, it doesn't have to be JRPG, but I think those tend to, we want longer, games nowadays.
Yeah.
I think depending on, especially old retro games, if you had a 20-hour game, for a lot of retro games, I mean, that was a long game.
Yes.
So, I mean, I agree with... So, I agree with what you're saying, but I think it depends on the game, for sure. I mean, as far as length. Okay, so music for me, story for you. Nakis, you want to take us into the game of the week?
Our game this week was the Flintstones on the Super Nintendo. There are a couple of Flintstone games on the Super Nintendo. We happened to play The Flintstones, which was based on the live-action motion picture.
Do you have any connection with that movie at all?
I went to see it in theaters.
Did you really?
As a kid.
I owned the movie and watched the heck out of it.
So, yeah, it's a side-scrolling platformer focused on saving Pebbles and Bam Bam, which are Fred's and Barney, his neighbor's kids. And then you also save Barney and Wilma, which is Fred's wife, from the evil Cliff Vandercave. It was published by Ocean Software Limited and developed by Ocean of America, Inc. This game was obviously based off a live-action movie. Ocean was notorious for being a developer of these type of titles. So you've got Cool World, you've got Batman, Lethal Weapon, you've got Jurassic Park, Hook, and the RoboCop series.
Ocean did Hook?
Ocean did Hook.
Really? Okay.
They also did a Waterworld game.
Now, Nakis, you touched up on it. It's Fred saving his family and friends from the quote-unquote evil Cliff Vandercave. You've got these periodic cutscenes in between. We've said it's a platformer. you're getting these really short cutscenes that go really quick.
Yeah.
You better be paying attention and reading the subtitles because it goes really quick, and then before you can even really fathom what's happening, someone's been kidnapped, and basically you got to go through a level of some sort and save them. So let's talk about the gameplay. It's platforming for sure. Yeah, oh boy, it's not the best.
It's not the
That's
best.
me being nice.
You start off and you have 3 weapons. You have a club, which, I mean, Fred Flintstone, caveman. You also have the bowling ball. You also have a rock that you can throw. You have a limited amount of each of these items, except for the club, it's unlimited. It's a melee weapon versus a throw and then like a rolling weapon. But you can pick up these weapons throughout the levels, but you can also pick them up after you throw them. So, like, if you hit an enemy in the head and kill it, the rock will drop.
That was one small redeeming quality that I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Is that you could pick up your projectile weapon.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the controls. It's A, okay, because it was weird. It's A to jump, which for the Super Nintendo, that's a little strange. Normally it's B, but you got A to jump, B for your bowling ball. I don't know how many times I accidentally rolled my bowling ball trying to jump, so that kind of bugged me. Y for your club, and X to throw your rocks. And the club was awful.
You had to be right up on them.
I mean, you're talking melee. It was your melee attack, but you had to be so close. The range of this thing was just unforgivably short. So you're having to get right up on these enemies and try to attack them with your club. Now, apart from that, the controls bother me in other ways. They were just clunky altogether. So for one, Fred slides everywhere, and he also bounces off the walls. And it was just like super not okay. Like, I don't know. It was just really bugging the crap out of me. And apart from that, there was like, it just seemed like there was times where I wasn't even getting hit, but I was taking damage, or it just, I mean, if you even barely 1 pixel on your sprite got hit, I mean, you're doomed. Now, jumping up on ledges.
Yeah, that was
Nakis, I know that really bugged you.
I literally almost quit playing this game because I spent like 10 or 15 minutes just trying to figure out how to progress on the first level within the first 35 seconds of this game. I'm like, okay, how do I get onto this ledge? And it's fairly simple after you realize how to do it. It's just the act of doing it the first time.
Right.
And so
it's a pretty precise grab.
Yeah, so you have to be right under the ledge. You have to jump straight up, and then you hit A again to grab onto it, which it's just seemed like a lot of work for something so simple.
It was just an extra touch that they didn't need to do. I mean, just let me jump up and kind of, aim towards the ledge and have it pull my character up.
Right.
Simple. Let's talk more about the platforming and just the level designs. And so the enemies, uninspiring. You've got a lot of animal enemies. You've got frogs and apes. There's cavemen, which, I mean, I'm not sure what type of enemies. I don't really have the solution, but they were just, it's not even the enemies themselves. There was something about them that seemed to be lacking in soul. And just the RNG on them. A good platformer will teach you how to use your controls, A, and B, it will teach you how to kind of manage or deal with certain enemies.
Certain enemies usually have a pattern to them.
Yes. But in this game, in this game they do. But in this game they didn't. Everything was so random. Like the cavemen would roll a boulder down a hill at you, and just not just the trajectory, but the speed was always different. So, and again, you're dealing with these clunky controls on top of it. So it's kind of a difficult game. I mean, right off the bat. So, getting back to just what's going on in these levels, a typical platformer. There's no health pickups.
Yeah, that was...
There's no health pickups.
Yeah. One of the main things that took my attention and took my desire to want to finish this game was the fact of having to locate all the random little buttons to activate certain platforms or certain, they essentially are like a switch on the ground that you would have to hit, and you would have to go and find, one or two or three of them at certain points, and that would activate
some kind of platform for you to be able to jump up on. Yeah, that bothered. There's a couple things I had an issue with regarding that. For one, so it's maze-like to a degree, which isn't really a bad thing if it's done well. It was just, like I said, uninspiring to even... it felt like a slog to go and find these buttons. So you get to a point, you're like, okay, I can't reach this thing. Okay, I got to backtrack. You go find this button. Okay, you find the button. One small thing that irritated me was you would activate the button, but it wouldn't stay pressed down. It would just immediately pop back up like spring-loaded or whatever, Give me that clarification that the button is pressed.
Right.
Because there would be boulders nearby, and I'm like, okay, do I need to push the boulder
to... I had that same...
kind of like the Legend of Zelda thing where you got to press something or have it hold it down.
But
it wasn't really like that. So,
thing.
Yeah, it was maze-like levels, and they were long.
Dude, they were so long. I was going to bring that up, bro. Yeah. The levels just drug on.
Yes.
And,
slog, for sure.
It's as short of a game as it was, they could have chopped those levels up into little smaller levels, and it might have even been a better game.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Without giving away too much, there's a few things that they could have tweaked, I think, that could have helped this game. But, so long levels, but the unforgiving part is there's no checkpoints.
Yeah.
So you get so far into a level, which 3 hits, by the way, 3 hits and you're dead. You're not dead, but you use a life and you're restarting at the beginning of the level, and that's just not okay. With bad controls and
no health pickups,
and it's not that fun along the way anyway. So now let's talk about some of the things that you can pick up, which there wasn't much incentive to pick some of these things up. Maybe there was these hourglass things, these little extra time pickups. There were extra lives, which is always nice. And then other than that, literally it was just gems.
Weapon drops, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess weapon drops. But these gems that you could pick up for a high score, which, come on guys, it's the mid-90s. We've moved on to consoles. So many games just you don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Certain games a high score system could do well, but
this was not.
This game didn't need that at all.
No.
Something random I also want to add. You would get dropped into these levels. Most of the time, Fred would be facing to the left. It's your typical platformer where you're going right, but for whatever reason, Fred is facing to the left, and it was just a funny little thing. I'm like, on top of everything, y'all couldn't even face him the right way. So you've got 5 different areas, and each area has a few different levels. You got the quarry, which has 3 different levels. Well, really, it's 2 levels and a boss. Then you've got Bedrock, which is just the one. It's like a mini game, and you're trying to save Pebbles and Bam Bam. So you're in the town, and you're Fred, and you're driving in your car to the right, and they're falling from, there's a stork or a prehistoric stork of some sort, a bird that has dropped them from a certain height, and you've got to drive your car and position yourself right underneath them to where they will stay airborne and not basically go splat on the ground.
Think of Brick Breaker.
Almost, except terrible.
Yeah, well, you're not breaking anything, but it's the same mechanics as the ball hitting the platform.
Right.
That's
you're
what
keeping
you're trying
it alive in the air. Yeah. You're keeping it airborne. So
Now, and there's two of them at the same time.
Yeah, well, it starts with two, and then one like ends up on a roof. So then you're just bouncing one, and then
the stork will grab another one.
Yeah, so but it's got this predetermined pattern of the way that it's going to go. Which I guess if you're, I can't even really defend that because it made it not fun. It would have probably been a little more fun if it actually was you balancing it and bouncing it, trying to, keep them alive, which that is what it is. But again, it's like predetermined. So they're going to bounce at a certain trajectory.
Yes.
No matter what.
No matter where you're...
predetermined pattern for this level, the way that they fall and bounce off of your car. It just wasn't fun.
It had every level or every area, they all had potential. This game could have been a lot better than what it was. But I feel like it was just a rush to get it out the door type situation.
Real quick, so Bedrock, so you got Quarry, Bedrock, the Jungle, which had 3 full platforming levels,
which were long,
and then a 4th one, which was a boss. We'll get to the mini bosses here in a minute. I won't jump into them quite yet. Then you've got the volcanic area that had 3 levels, and then the machine, it had 3 different levels. The first one just being another quarry level.
Yeah,
it literally just
that
jumps back to the first aesthetics and level design, and it didn't innovate at all. It was just it was more of the same.
Yeah, and that really threw me off.
Yeah,
honestly,
just totally breaks up the pacing. Again, it's so mundane. Is that the word?
Yes.
And just boring. So you got another quarry level, which is your machine one, and then the second one, I want to talk about that for a second. You've got these moving platforms, which can be kind of fun, I guess. It took me a second.
You are on a moving platform.
Yes, you're on a moving platform.
And then you hit these switches to change. Think of the water pipe game. You know what I'm talking about? Where
I know what
the water's coming through.
But I know what you're getting at. I know because I played it, so I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so like the water's coming through, and then you come to a intersection point, and then you have to flip this piece,
redirect a piece to make the water keep flowing. Yes, that's exactly what this is. You are, you're moving. You're hitting these switches to change these pieces to guide you in a new path to progress. But also, I want to touch on the controls because it took me a second to figure out what I was doing. To move up and down, you would hit up and down. Say you come to a vertical part on the track. You hit up and your platform will go up. But to go left and right, you have to hit L and R. So it was really strange. Which there's so many missed opportunities on the Super Nintendo to use your shoulder buttons. Your L and your R, and then
this is literally the only reason that you use them in this entire game.
Well, what I'm saying is, just in general, Super Nintendo games...
I'm asking you, is this the only time that you use those? Because I don't remember using those.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the only time. But yeah, so you're on this platform and you hit L and R, which I just feel like of all games to use it, and of all specific moments in a game to use it, it's like, okay, it's got to be... this game. So anyways, thought that was a little strange. And then you got a third machine level, and then it just ends. There's no end boss. That's it. It's platforming, long levels, uninspired enemies.
The fact that there's no end boss is just
no end boss, but there's 2 super mid game bosses, and they're just... So the first one is the Quarry level 3, and I took this guy out and the difficulty was so all over the place because the levels were hard, but then you get to this first boss, I beat him in 4 seconds. I smacked him. It's funny because I complained about the club and its short range attack, but I somehow was able to take him out really quick with it. Literally smacked him 4 or 5 times. He was down in an instant. And then the third area, which is the jungle, you've got the fourth. It's Jungle 4, and it's just a boss, and it's a cougar, and
It's a saber-toothed tiger.
no, it's a cougar. And I had PTSD flashbacks on this one, just to reference another decent platforming game on the Super Nintendo, the Jungle Book from Disney Interactive. That's a pretty good game, but it is kind of marred by insane difficulty. I had played that game about a year ago. I used save states, and I got to certain points where there's these mini bosses in that game that are just incredibly hard for no reason. It's like they don't even seem like they should be that hard, but they just were. And this boss reminded me of the mini bosses from that game. Like, it's like, okay, he's not even doing that much, but there's something awkward about his movements, and the way you would take him, this cougar, down is you would smack your club on the ground, and these like coconuts or something would fall down, but they're also falling on you. So you had to.
Well, here's the other thing: is like maybe 2 or 3 of them will fall.
Yeah.
So you can be standing under one and it not fall.
Yeah. Technically, they shake beforehand, but
true.
It's a very subtle little animation. So I don't know. It was just an awkward battle. It actually, even with save states, it took me a good few tries to get that boss down.
So after the jungle, I did want to kind of jump in and say that the only real time that I found myself enjoying this game was the lava levels, which you might have had a different experience. And I'll be honest, I didn't get to the lava levels. I watched a video on it, but it just looked more fun than the rest of this game. I'll say that.
I wish I could say that they were more fun. In a way, maybe they were. And I can see where, and it just, this kind of is a testament to the difference between playing a game and watching it, because I can totally understand why when you watch that, you might be like, oh, this looks like okay, the visuals, you got there's the surfing level, which I actually meant to touch up on that. There's a lava surfing level. It's gimmicky, which gimmicky can be good, but you've got blind enemies coming in, and again, just the lack of checkpoints, and you've got continues. So when you die your last time, it'll show Fred at his house, and you can either kind of turn in and be done with the game and submit your high score, so to speak, or you can, depending on if you have any continues left, you can kind of, you make your way left, and you'll continue, and you'll just kind of restart from where you picked up. So I just wanted to kind of clarify on that. But playing the game and watching it might have looked more fun, but it just, again, more of the same kind of mundane levels. Now, and maybe I'm getting ahead here, but we've kind of glossed over, yes, things could have been done to make this a better game, and I can definitely see where they tried in certain areas. They tried to do things differently, and I think they tried to innovate in many ways that just somehow didn't mesh together. It didn't land. The cogs just weren't turning.
I feel like this was maybe an experimental game. They were trying to maybe try new mechanics out, or they were just like, you know what? We don't think anybody's going to buy this game anyways. Which I'm sure that it sold a lot because the Flintstones was popular.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I'm trying to piece together why they would make this game the way that they did.
Because it's just, everything, that was just the thing to do back then. Like you said, Ocean was kind of known for, notorious even for
gimmicky.
Yeah, gimmicky, licensed movie video games,
They probably had a deadline to meet and, get this game out as quickly as possible.
I want to talk about these, I call them Yoku blocks, because that's a thing. So there's a thing in Mega Man called Yoku blocks, and it's the randomly appearing and disappearing blocks in a really strange, weird pattern. And sometimes it kind of teaches you, and sometimes it's kind of BS in the sense that like you got to make a couple blind jumps. I can think of a couple levels off tops, but and they had something like that in one of the lava levels in this game. I hated it. I would way rather. I think it's the Yoku blocks are kind of notorious to Mega Man fans. Like that's something that they don't really like in the games. But I've always kind of had fun with them. I think they're a fun, puzzling element. Maybe not a puzzle. Maybe puzzle's not the right word, but platforming, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, this was not fun. I don't know the way that the blocks appeared and reappeared in this was just real difficult, and I couldn't figure it out a lot of times, or sometimes it would be the switch that I'm missing. I have to backtrack, go find a switch, and then it would make this invisible block appear, whatever. Anyways, so on top of that, you're making blind jumps. It was just not okay. I just wasn't okay with a lot of the platforming gameplay of this.
Yeah, I mean, dude, when you have a platforming game and you don't like, and the platforming is the main gripe of it, it's like,
it was, it was.
Spoiler alert, guys. I mean, I've already touched up on this, but I did not finish this game, and it wasn't because I didn't have time. It was because I didn't have interest. It lost me pretty early on.
Yeah. I feel like now is as good a time as any. This is actually the first game that I beat out of all the games we played on this podcast. I don't know if I'm proud of that or ashamed because this game was not good, but I almost wanted to beat it out of spite. I don't know what it was. I had told you I wanted to beat it, and even then I wasn't sure if I was going to get through to the end because... And even towards the end, I'm like, do I want to put myself through this? And then I ended up getting through it. It wasn't that long of a game.
It's actually, very short.
But, yeah, it can't be overstated. It was a slog. There was so much breaking up of the gameplay, of the platforming. You're, waiting on something. I can't really think of too many examples, but I just remember... waiting for the lava to rise or something like that, and it was such a slog. Let's move on to graphics. If there is one redeeming quality about this game, in my opinion, it is the graphics. Let me ask you, well, how did you feel about the graphics?
I actually rated the graphics and the music this time around.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's for fun. Let's hear it.
So the graphics, I initially, the first couple levels, the depth of the background layers, they did a cool thing with it.
Call it the multi-layered parallax scrolling is what it is.
Yeah. Whatever.
Parallax scrolling is especially in the 90s, they were figuring out how to, some games as you're moving with the level, the background it's just all one background, and it just doesn't move in proportion to your character properly. So what they figured out is if you make the background scroll slower than the foreground, it gives it the effect of a 3D environment. Normally in games you got a few layers, but this was guys, when I say multi-layered, you're talking multi-layered, 10, 15 layers of background scrolling at different speeds to make it look 3D. So,
which might have been the reason that there wasn't as much. There was more focus on the graphics than there was on the gameplay aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Game.
In general, you said you do.
I did at first, and then the more that I played or watched, the more that I got into it, I mean, dude, for one, there's not, it's all repetitive, for one. I mean, the first level is 3 levels long, and it's the same background.
Yes.
The second level, 3 levels long, same background. Third level, 2 or 3 levels long, same background.
Right.
It was the repetitiveness. Watching that over and over again, it made me actually break down and look at, like, are these graphics as cool as they could be?
Right.
Like, and honestly, I gave it a 5.5.
Oh, dang.
The innovation is there. Like I said, in the first level, I noticed that background scrolling and stuff, and then after that, you don't really, I mean, I didn't really notice a whole lot of it.
Well, you're wrong, and I'm about to tell you how wrong you are.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Kind of. So, again, I said if it had one redeeming quality, it's the graphics. I still kind of stand by that. The highs were very, very, very high, graphic-wise. And the lows were pretty mid. Let me explain. So, the dinosaur in the very first level is legitimately some of the best graphics I've seen on the console. And coming from a Super Nintendo fanboy, I'm a pretty big fan of the system. And I'm not a fan of this game. So in the most unbiased way, so two things stood out to me in a very, very impressive visual way. The dinosaur on the first level, it looked like you could reach out and just like feel the scales on this thing. I mean, it looked so real in a way, I guess. And then when you would die and go to the continue area where you can choose to go inside Fred's house, that was on par easily with PS1 rendered backgrounds or graphics.
Really?
Man, I'm talking smooth as butter. Smooth as absolute butter. Again, the highs were very, very high. The lows were okay. The lows were the fact that just the levels were so big, so they did a lot of asset reusage, which is fine, but they didn't really hide it at all. So it's like it was. You're right. It was repetitive in visuals, but they were nice visuals, if that makes sense.
The graphics are decent. Aside from that dinosaur, I didn't really see anything that was like, wow, that's incredible that they did that. Like,
Yeah.
It didn't wow me like that.
I think if the gameplay was a lot better and the game was actually fun, I think it would have brought it up more. And I think you would have appreciated it more. But
And that's a possibility,
that's just
for sure.
a theory. But when I talk about the graphics being good, and I've said it, the highs are high, the lows are lows. The lowest being your actual character sprite himself, Fred Flintstone, which it's literally John Goodman. They tried to do a realistic, we've said it's based on the live action movie from '94. So they tried to make it look realistic. They didn't go for the cartoony look. And
they didn't use like a stand-in character model like Mortal Kombat, where they actually used live action.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have helped in this case.
I mean, dude, honestly, I think it might have.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Either way, it's John Goodman.
In pixel art form.
In pixel art form, and it just looked goofy. More so when, like, it's not really just, so his sprite already looks kind of goofy, but the animations were just off. And I kid you not. Okay, so when you were, say, if you're running and then you jump, all of a sudden his limbs would go super flimsy and like skinny, like. So it's like you go from the kind of stocky John Goodman, Fred Flintstone, to he's jumping through the air now, and now he's super skinny all of a sudden for a split second. Really, really awkward animation. I don't know if you had caught on to that at all.
I didn't.
Okay, so I kid you not. I think they used like. Maybe I'm crazy, but it looked like Mowgli from the Jungle Book game, which I actually mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
When he jumps through the air. Now, the animations in all the Disney Super Nintendo games are awesome. Won't get too into that, but he's obviously a skinny little guy. He jumps through the air. I swear they used the same animation for Fred Flintstone. Maybe I'm wrong, but if they didn't, it's very close looking. So we'll talk about the music for a second, and then we can probably close this one out soon after that. I've got mixed feelings about the music. I almost feel the same way about it as I do the graphics, in the sense that the highs were high, but the lows were kind of, there weren't really lows. It was just mid. It's not really that the music was bad. It was just very short looped. You're getting really repetitive short looped tracks, that's going for a while, and then you've got this release, and it'll finally go into something a little more interesting for a second, but then it's back to this repetitive, and then it's the same track for, so you're going through these jungle levels, and I'm pretty sure you've got this same track throughout every single one of them, and it just gets old. Now, I've got written down here, I might get some flack for this. This is basically, hey, we have Donkey Kong Country 2 at home. It's like, hey, can we have this, Mom? No, we have that at home, and this is that. Now, I say that regarding the better parts of the songs.
I because they had some good parts of it.
Huh?
So I wouldn't even say that. I mean, personally, I wouldn't even say that there are good parts of the music on this.
Well, to that I say, you need to listen to the password screen. Nakis, when I say this song that plays when you go, so like from the main screen, you can start a new game or whatever, you can do options, you can do passwords. The music that plays in this screen has no right being this good. It is S tier. S tier across the board.
Which makes you wonder why the other rest of the game music is trash.
I mean, well, the rest of the game, like I said, it's like mid to good. It's got really, really short little good moments, and then it's back to mid for a long time. So, but I'm telling you, man, after I did get through the game, I beat it, and then I went back to the main screen, and just kind of messing around, I clicked on the password screen, and the music, it is so good. Like, genuinely one of the best Super Nintendo tracks. Like, it's like Chrono Trigger good. It's like, it's so, I don't know if ethereal is the word. It was just awesome.
I find it so weird that they would put the best song on a menu that you're only going to go to maybe never.
Apart from the music, just real quick, the sound effects. The sound effects were kind of garbage. I guess they kind of got the point across of what they were doing, but they were just, there was something blocky about the sounds. That's the best way I can kind of describe it.
Right.
Very short, sharp sound effects, and they were mid, very, very mid. Nakis, tell us your final thoughts and your rating on this game.
My final thoughts are, I really did not like this game. I thought it was, like I said, there were so many missed opportunities. I feel like there were so many times that I either was playing through or watching the rest of the game be played out that I was like, if they did this a little bit differently, it could have potentially made the game a lot better. My main gripe was the level length, the mediocre boss fights. Like, you don't even fight the main villain in this. It was
not even at all. Not even once.
You literally, you get to the end of the level, of that zone, and it's just abrupt ending. It makes no sense whatsoever. And even the boss fights that you do have are more like mini games in a sense. Like, it's really, there was so much they could have done to make this game better. I think that they were just trying to make a quick dollar. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that Ocean Software is notorious for making pretty terrible movie-based games. We'll say that.
So what would you give for your final rating on this game, playing it today?
This game is going to be my first 1.5.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah. It's absolute just do not even recommend looking at the label.
You said 1.5?
I was going to say 2.5, but then I was like, dude, this game sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so you gave it a 1.5. That puts it in our unplayable tier. Anything from 0 to 2.9. So if it's under a 3, that's an unplayable game.
Didn't know that you had updated that, but I'm where I stand, bro. This game
for sure. Yeah, no, I had no qualms with you. Like, I was probably a little more generous than you, but you saying, hey, this is an unplayable game, I have no issues, no qualms with that whatsoever, because it is a bad game, which leads me to saying my score, which is a 4.5, which does mean that it lands in the bad tier for me. It's not quite unplayable to me. It is in a way, but I don't
ever want to play
I wouldn't land it quite that low. It's a bad game. I want to be a little more generous with it just because it did try things that just didn't land. I think maybe with a little more time in the oven, this one could have been a solid platformer. They could have tweaked the level design a little bit, made them shorter, tighten it up a little bit, maybe add a little more inspiring enemies and things going on throughout the level. You're just getting a lot of the same throughout, trudging through these levels. Tweak the controls a little bit. Maybe give Fred some more power-ups, or give him a dinosaur ally. I know he's got like a pet in the show or in the movie. They could have done something there to spruce up these levels a little bit. Give me more incentive to explore the levels. I've got here in my notes, the graphics and music saved this from being unplayable. So I would have given this a lower score, but I was very much impressed with, again, not the main character sprite. That was kind of abysmal. But the backgrounds were pretty enough. The parallax scrolling was very impressive. Like, you don't find that many layers of background scrolling in Super Nintendo games. You just don't really. It's very rare. Again, the dinosaur and Fred's house, like, just really, like, Fred's house looks just so silky smooth. Like, it could have been a PS1 game. And I mean, we might disagree there. I was impressed with the graphics, but I think you may have said this earlier, and I agree with you. If the graphics or music were any worse, this game just would have been so unforgivingly bad. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. I would give it like a 0.5. Again, I did beat the game this week out of spite. And yeah, I think that it's like one of those things where a little bit can go a long ways. Like, little things could have been changed, and this could have been at least a decent platformer. So, in conclusion, yes, I give it a 4.5.
You're definitely courteous with that 4.5 score.
I also like platformers a little bit more, and as much as I hated this game, I did want to keep coming back to playing it just to spite it. There was tiny little, and even that, like, dude, the lava surfing level, like, that looked pretty decent. How could you sum this game up in 3 words, Nakis?
I've thought about this one. Prehistoric money grab. That's my 3.
Oh my gosh, you've had 2 really good ones in a row. Yeah, that's a good one. I've got Trudging through Bedrock because man, it was a trudge. It was a slog, a boring game, uninspired trudge. Yeah. So that being said, you can find this game from anywhere between about $15 to $30 just for the physical card. You can get the CIB, meaning the complete inbox version of this, you're going to be spending about $60.
I'm not.
I will not be either, but should you so want to, listeners, which I don't see why you would, you would be spending about $60. Now, let's forever put this game down, never to talk about it or think about it or play it again, and randomize 3 games for you to choose from, Nakis.
It's your week, buddy.
Is it my week?
Yeah.
Well, let's randomize 3 games for me to choose from, Tins.
Yeah.
Doing so now.
Alright, Tins, I got your games here to choose from for next week. They are going to be The Immortal, James Bond 007, and Excitebike 64.
James Bond 007.
Okay, that is for the Game Boy.
Okay. For the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Clearly, I knew this wasn't the exalted GoldenEye for the 64, but just out of curiosity, wanted to see. Okay, like just James Bond 007.
Yep.
That's the name of it. Okay.
That's literally
I just
the
wanted
name
to
of
see. Okay. So join us next week as we play James Bond 007 for the Game Boy, and
Follow us on social media.
do that.
NintenHeadZ on Facebook and Instagram.
Guys, we also have a Discord. It's kind of a dead town right now. I've waited to talk about it just because I don't know why. I just wanted to see if we could get a few episodes under our belt. But join us in Discord if you want. You can find the link to that on our aforementioned social media platforms. We made it just because if it's just an easy way to contact us or talk to us. You can email us or find us on the social media, or you can find us there, and it's kind of a more direct way to talk to us, hang out with us, give us feedback, and all of the above. So, again, this week's game is James Bond 007 for the Game Boy. Play along with us. We'll see you next week. I'm Tins.
I'm Nakis.
And this has been episode 5 of NintenHeadZ.
We're out.
Have a great week, guys.